I'm just going to give a very, very vague overview of the first two episodes of the Slayer audiobook, and you can judge for yourself if this is worth giving a try. Again, I'm only going to do very, very minor spoilers beyond the obvious setup, and you can judge for yourself if you want to give it a try. A little bit of time passing after season 7. Whether Angel is canonical seems a little fuzzy, but certain things had to happen. So obviously, for instance, Spike was killed at the end of season 7, so he's been resurrected, so we have to take that for granted. And apparently he's operating with Clem, and they are part of a kind of demon resistance force because we have too many Slayers now. And Spike is essentially undercover. He's still good, but he acts bad to help people. Now you have to explain, well, how do the demons even trust him? Well, apparently he was mind controlled into doing good things, and that's how he explains why he did things with the Slayer. Why no one is aware that him and the Slayer were having sex or were in a relationship. Apparently that's being made a little fuzzy. You could believe the demons wouldn't know everything about their relationship. And him and Clem meet Indira, a new young Slayer who's been activated. And I'm not going to interject too many criticisms while I give the plot outline, but it does strike me pretty weird given the huge number of Slayers, why he's even necessary. You'd think they'd have extra help, but whatever. So she's a young new Slayer. She's very spunky. She apparently knows the Slayer mythology, so she talks about Buffy and Spike, and even Faith. She gets a name drop. So they have to try to help her because the demons might hurt her, and then comes in Cordelia. Now this is not our Cordelia from the Buffyverse. This is from an alternate reality. She needs Spike's help because Drusilla in her reality is the big bad, and she's taken over. She's creating a lot of damage, and this is one of the several twists that I think people will be a little iffy on. And she's being helped by Tara. In that alternate reality, she's the queen of witches, and she's obviously doing dark spells, and she's on the dark side, essentially. So she's asking for Spike's help, and the only one who she can count on in her reality is Anya, and they have to make a decision quick because Anya can only keep the portal open on their side for a little while, so Spike has to make a very quick decision to help her. And there also is the resurrection of Anya. So there are two Anyas. There's Anya from the Cordelia reality, but also our Anya. Although it's not the Anya from the end of season 7. They've kind of changed the canon, so now we have multiple Anyas. So that's the basic gist, that Cordelia needs help. Spike will help her. They'll slip into her reality and presumably equalize the forces. And apparently Cordelia in her reality has suffered many, many losses. So she's lost most of her family. Apparently her and Xander never went out, although that's a little weird because she recognizes him. And Anya and Xander also had no relationship. So it's a lot of key changes to the mythology. Again, it's an alternate reality. That makes sense. But they are also changing some things that canonically never happened, and that may upset a few people because this is more of an Amber production than a Joss production. So she's playing around with certain elements in terms of how witches work and the vampires work. Whether it's successful at this point is a little too early to tell. The world building is a little sloppy. Well, it's really two things. One is the need to interject fight sequences, even though they don't quite make a lot of sense. So that was one annoying feature. Also, the dialogue, very, very sharply downgrade from the Buffy or Angel series. It just doesn't feel right. It feels very much like Amber and the other co-writer are just imitating the Joss style, but they're not able to do it, so it feels a little clunky. But that is the basic overview of episodes 1 and 2. I'm not going to give a judgment entirely here. I'll do some separate videos on that, but I'd say at this point it is what it is. It feels like interesting fan fiction, but nothing essential. It's not like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And even the voice acting is a little bit all over the place. I will say, though, that the complaint that James Marsters does not sound like Spike, that does get better with each apparent episode. So some of the clips early on do sound rough, but he does sound more like Spike as you go along and if you keep reading or listening to the story. And there we are with episodes 1 of 2 of Slayers, the audiobook.